Hey everyone, welcome back to the BioNexus Health podcast series, Autism Uprooted. I'm so glad you could join me today. Before we begin, let me remind you to please subscribe. It's a completely free channel, educational channel, and the subscription button should be to the bottom right. I've been told that about 57% of those of you watching have not subscribed yet. So remember that we are trying to reach a lot of autism families around the world. So please do subscribe. This helps us take the message further and to a much wider audience. So appreciate that. All right. Today is going to be about point 3 in the initial podcast that I started a couple points back, which was top 5 reasons why your child is not improving. Today, we will be discussing electromagnetic frequencies.
Welcome to the BioNexus Health podcast with Dr. Jodie Dashore, who holds a Ph.D. in Integrative Medicine, is board certified in Integrative Pediatrics, an internationally recognized pioneering clinician, and author. And now here's your host of BioNexus Health podcast, Dr. Jodie Dashore.
Most of us know that we are constantly surrounded by machines that buzz, right? I mean, there's a lot of machinery, digitalization, Wi-Fi in our lives everywhere we go, pretty much everywhere we go. So, there is a pretty high trend in going off-grid, at least in the United States, and I believe in many other countries around the world as well. People are trying to be low profile, off grid, not just for internal peace, but also it's very important for health and wellness as well. So that's a raging trend nowadays. I'm in the process of semi off grid in the near future myself, and I'm really excited and really looking forward to it. Electromagnetic frequencies is a subject that is very close to my heart. As you all know, most of you know that I am an autism mom myself. My son Brian is fully recovered, but one of the major issue that we had seen back when he was little, and it continues to this day if there is excessive exposure to electromagnetic frequencies, is various symptoms like motor tics. So motor tics would be, head shaking, vocal tics, making strange vocal sounds like it would continue as a involuntary vocal tic. Motor tics would be head nodding, eye blinking, facial grimacing. Sometimes, his arms would flare about in all different directions. The more electromagnetic frequencies that we were surrounded by, the worse the symptoms would get. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail about the effects of electromagnetic frequencies, but there is a lot of information out there that tells us that electromagnetic frequencies, excessive exposure can drive microbial growth. So mold growth, Lyme disease, co-infections, parasites, any other microbial concerns that your child might have. Most of you have run labs, and we have customized your child's protocol accordingly. So all of the microbial issues that are going on with your child and all of the underlying microbial issues. So electromagnetic frequencies will drive those issues higher, and you will see flare-ups, and often severe flare-ups. I have given one example previously, I believe, and I would like to mention that here. But actually, wait, let me finish speaking about Brian first. Okay, so what would happen was, one vivid example that I can give you is, we had to travel to many different countries and seek out the help of many pioneering physicians. So, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, UK, many different states within the United States as well. I believe we traveled to between 12 and 15 different states to meet specialists and learn about PANDAS, which was in its very beginning stages back in the day. This is like almost, 10, 15 years ago that I'm speaking to you about. So we live about half an hour from the airport. And I distinctly and vividly remember the closer we got to the airport, Newark Airport, Newark Liberty in New Jersey is a humongous airport. And in the New York area, it's an extremely busy airport. And I remember we would be within 5 miles of the airport is when violent motor tics would start. Brian would be in the back seat and I would see the head shaking, eye blinking. It was just heartbreaking. And this continued until we discovered and addressed the underlying microbial issues. Those were major triggers, right? Drastically reduced EMFs, educated myself on electromagnetic frequencies. I stumbled upon EMF research. Once again, that wasn't as widely available as it's now. Everything was in its infancy that many years ago. But I happened to stumble upon research in, I believe, European environmental journals. Well, actually, wait, no, not just that. The physicians at, some of the physicians in Europe that we met, especially information from the Paracelsus Institute in Switzerland. We got a lot of information. We were cautioned on EMFs. So we actually proceeded to eliminate as much as possible. We installed shielding, protection devices, personal protection, the home, the car, the school, traveling, and I'll be getting into details of all of that step by step. But I cannot emphasize the importance of trying to neutralize and shield from electromagnetic frequencies, okay, from EMF frequencies, radio frequencies, microwave radiation. All of these can be extremely detrimental to a recovering child. It's actually, it's detrimental to everyone exposed to them, but our children on the spectrum are very susceptible because they are medically fragile, right? So I was going to give you that example. So there was this one child that I remember speaking about with acute extended exposure to an electric car. I don't want to name names, but there is a very famous new electric car that's been available the last couple of years. And, the battery on that car is huge. It's undercarriage. It's a large battery, obviously producing a large EMF field. One little kid, 4 years old, dad purchased a brand new car, electric car. It's been the rage, hasn't it? So the poor little boy loves car rides and, helps him settle down if he's cranky. He wasn't verbal yet. I believe he had a couple words, was progressing really well. Very, very sensitive child with a lot of medical issues, extremely fragile, especially with the gut, my goodness, tons and tons of food sensitivity. So the immune system was, overstimulated, on high alert, mold exposure. And this kid ended up in a 2-hour car ride, trying to settle him down to get him to sleep. And this happened for 3 to 4 days in a row. And after that, poor mom, she messaged me that her son's die-off reactions were extremely severe. And I was, kind of confused a little bit because this child had been on the same protocol, very low dose, for almost a month. And there had been no change in the protocol. Neither had mom increased the dosage of any of the herbal drops. So die-off did not make any logical sense. Long story short, when I discussed with her, has he been exposed to anything new? And this was when she said, no, nothing new. He's eating the same food, same medicines. We don't know what's going on. And then within 10 minutes, she called back and she said, no, you know what? We have a new car. And I never thought about that. So one of the things that I always caution parents about is anything new is not advisable. A new car, it could be new furniture, right? Even if it is, I guess if you have the most eco-friendly, VOC free, like zero VOC, no paints, varnishes, lacquers, nothing of that sort, just, plain naked wood with organic materials, no toxic glues, no flame retardants. Those furnitures, that kind of furniture should be okay. But, if you just buy any kind of on the market furniture that's on sale, so that counts as well. That actually counts for a lot. So a new purchase, any kind, right? So car. So she mentioned what car they had purchased and what exposure he had had. And that is when, we realized that this kid has a violent reaction to bombardment with EMFs. I mean, that would, the car that I'm speaking about is, of course, very environmentally friendly, of course, due credit for that. But unfortunately, for those with EMF sensitivities, you have to be careful. It took about 3 to 4 months for the child to calm down. The flare-up actually got much worse. Started pulling out mom's hair in clumps, a lot of aggression. Poor mom had to shave her head so she wouldn't be hurt and injured, by her ailing kid, this poor little boy. The car was actually exchanged with a family member's car, and that's when they were able to take the child out for car rides again. This was an older car, very well aired out as well as cleaned out, mold-free and what have you. There was no outgassing. So the new car, not only did it have that new car smell, right? All of those flame retardants and other chemicals that go to constitute that new car smell. Many people crave. That's really interesting. Many people like that new car smell, right? I guess, people have their reasons, but yes, that was extremely toxic. Took us a very long time. Good news is that it's fixable. And the child is doing absolutely amazingly well, to the point where, now this poor darling mom, absolutely fantastic, phenomenal, dedicated mom, like many autism moms are, most autism moms are, very selfless, little angel for this child of hers. She is now going to be treated by me as well, finally, for her numerous medical issues. I mean, obviously, right? The child has environmental issues, infectious issues. Well, of course, 1 or 2 family members are going to be in the same boat, right? Just because of living in proximity, in close quarters, your family. So it's very heartwarming to be able to help a mom, such a beautiful primary caregiver for this child to regain her health. But so that story ended well. But it's very important to be careful of electromagnetic frequency and RF radio frequency exposure. One school district, I'm sure there are many, but a local school district, I heard this from an ABA therapist who has Lyme disease, and I treated both of her children. I actually saw her through two Lyme pregnancies. And the first child, it was a very sudden pregnancy, so did not have enough time to detoxify her. So the first child was born blue, cyanos, meaning blue, with a lot of complications, a lot of allergies and eczema and chronic issues. He's fine now. Name's Colin. Colin's doing really well. Colin's brother fared much better. They are both phenomenal. They're doing amazing. Mom is doing really well as well. But one of the things that she mentioned was a very highly rated local school district prides itself in providing iPads for every single child in their autism classroom. Special needs, mostly autistic children, but all special need children are in that classroom. And they have a Wi-Fi booster right in the class. They have 2 or 3 autism classes because it needs to be a small class. So right next to each other, and in total, they probably have like 35 to 40 at a given time, right? iPads running on Wi-Fi. The teachers have their own personal cell phones. I mentioned that there's a Wi-Fi booster. The school has its own Wi-Fi as well. There are numerous devices and phones in the school as well. So it is, and unfortunately, the school also happens to be near cell towers. Yes, and there is an electric station. I forget what it's called exactly, but it is one of those large electric relay stations where there is a large, oh yeah, the electric grid. Okay, it wasn't a huge grid, but the electric grid and relay station for that particular township wasn't that far from the school either. And this made me think, and I realized that my son's elementary school here in the US is from kindergarten to 5th grade. Okay, so all the way to 5th grade, we had a similar situation. There was mold in the school. There were always buckets laying around to collect water from roof leaks. Absolutely disgusting. And most people are not aware. They're like, hey, it's leaking, they'll fix it. But anyways, that's for a whole other podcast. But, schools can be cesspools of disease and toxins. So we had a proximity to a mini grid, a mini electric grid. There was high tension power lines right in the back going straight through a farm that we have right here. As well as the school had mold issues, I already mentioned that, plus very heavy duty Wi-Fi. There was an autism resource classroom in that school as well. So it must have been a mind-boggling amount of exposure that my son had as well. But yes, most children go 6 to 8 hours in school, right? So that is a lot of exposure to Wi-Fi. At home, you need to make sure that your exposure is nullified or, minimized. The best way to approach this, I think, is I should talk about, what needs to be done and what's been my experience as well, right? So from what I've learned and what, the different measures that we have instituted is all computers are hardwired as with Ethernet cables, right? We don't have Wi-Fi. The router, there's no boosters, just one main router. The router is fully capable of Wi-Fi, right? It's Wi-Fi capable, but we turn it off. It's a simple switch. It takes like half a second to just turn it off. We never turn it on. Maybe once or twice a week for uploading or downloading backup data. That's all that we use Wi-Fi for. So Wi-Fi is not used. Now, this router, with the Wi-Fi turned off, is further encased in a router cage. There are EMF cages available for routers, for smart meters outside. I'll actually get to that. So now the router. So that is enclosed or put in this router cage, and we operate with that. It works just fine. I mean, the house is humongous. I'm looking forward to downsizing, actually, but it seems to work really well. We don't have any issues. Again, remember, everything is hardwired. So we have 50 to 100 feet cables that have been properly organized with cable organizers to go along the wall. So no one, the ceiling and then the wall. So it's quite possible to do that. It might take a little while. You might have to get a handyman or a contractor to organize that properly for you, but yeah. So that's with the routers. Now, the computers themselves, we have laptops and we have desktops. So the computers outgas, there's radiation from the screen as well as from the keyboards. There is further outgassing of heavy metals and inert gases from the keyboard itself. So we don't use any laptop keyboards. Okay, the highest toxicity that I have found, found in the sense, it would be clinical experience that I've heard from my patients. It would be laptop keyboards and cell phones. Handling cell phones, different brands. I don't want to name brands, but there is one particular extremely famous brand that gives me a lot of aches and pains and arthritis-like symptoms in my hands when I used to have that particular phone. So I switched to something not quite so famous. And that seems to work out much better for me. You have to look at the SAR rating of a phone, the SAR rating. And I opted to go for a cell phone, a smartphone with a SAR rating that was much lower than the one I was using previously. Additionally, let's finish up with the laptops. Okay. So laptops, the screens as well as the keyboards have options. Okay. Now the screens can be protected as well as the keyboard. You can switch that with the USB keyboard. So the keyboard that I have here, as you can see, is wired. Okay, it's and then it's a low EMF wired keyboard. I don't have any wireless keyboard. And same thing with the mouse. Okay, the mouse is also wired. It's a USB mouse. I don't like to use the laptop keyboard. I never do. Even on my tablets, I like to have a USB keyboard, so it's wired. Those are available even for tablets. And those keyboards have an integrated mouse, but it greatly reduces EMF exposure. Instead of using your finger on the tablet and using that to type, or using the Bluetooth enabled Wi-Fi pen writing device that comes with your tablet. That's all very high EMF exposure. And it is much better to use wired USB keyboards. The same with headphones. Nothing Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi headphones, no ear pods. I don't know of any little children with autism that actually use ear pods, but just a word of caution, because parents like to have these toys around, right? These latest electronics around. So just be careful. The Wi-Fi headphones are right here, and especially if your child has PANDAS, any kind of seizure, history of any kind of seizures, any kind of seizure activity, motor tics, it is a huge caution for children with those issues. Okay, right. What kind of headphones can you use? Wired headphones. There are low EMF headphones available. If you do due diligent research, there are wired headphones that are low EMF. Those are available as well. Now, wired earplugs, those are available as well. If you don't want to use over-the-head headphones. So there are definitely options out there. You can do your own research depending on which country you're in. So I do have some resources from several countries. So those of you who are my patients, let me know during your appointment, and I can give you some suggestions. And there are a couple of companies in Europe. There are a few here in the US. But depending on your individual situation in your appointment, we can analyze and I can recommend a few things for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The next one would be your car. All right, once again, no wireless headphones in the car. If you are utilizing an iPad in the car, remember, don't activate Bluetooth. Don't utilize Wi-Fi in the car if you have, hotspots available in the car and you have a child in there with autism. It is best to get protective devices, protective covers for your iPad. Those are available as well. So EMF protection for iPad is very important. There are specific covers available that are EMF protection covers. Additionally, there are what's known as human frequency diodes, bioresonance diodes that are available that can be, they are self-adhesive. It has a little sticky back, and it is meant to be put near the power source of the device. So you just stick it on there. That's additional protection. And that is then safer. It's never safe, but it's safer for a child to watch a movie. Now remember, if you're watching a movie, that movie should be downloaded already, right? You should be offline, no Wi-Fi. You should be in airplane mode anytime you're using your devices. And that's not just in the car, it's like in general for traveling. If you're using devices, it is best for your child to download and to be completely offline, no Wi-Fi while traveling. Many cars are equipped with their own audio-visual systems, and these audio-visual systems have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth-enabled headphones. I'm mentioning that again. Once again, personal experience. I remember using the first time we used Wi-Fi headphones with Brian. Oh my goodness, it looked like his head started shaking so violently. Thankfully, I spotted that in the rear view mirror. As I was driving, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is he having a grand mal seizure? What is happening with my poor little kid? And we stopped the car, and I realized it was a direct one-on-one connection with the wireless headset. So that was a complete no. After that, we had to actually acclimatize him to a wired headset simply because the brain is so inflamed. Brain was just enormously inflamed with PANDAS issues. And of course, biotoxin illness as well, which I discovered later. So that's in the car. Now, the diodes that I mentioned that go on your electronic devices like cell phones, tablets, those can go on the battery of a car, and those can go inside a car as well. Additionally, I have a magnetic strip that is available that gets attached under the car. So it's hanging and it grounds the car. So this strip actually connects the car and it grounds all the way. The strip actually touches the ground is what I'm trying to say. And so there is grounding occurring for the car, right? So grounding, so that's for the car. Additionally, while traveling, again, any kind of traveling, what we used to do for my son, and options available are EMF clothing. So, undershirt, underwear, a hoodie, a headscarf, neck scarf, gloves, socks, all of these are available. Now, we used to wear everything while traveling by plane because, especially with the window seat, there is a lot of electronics going through, and it can be very detrimental or stimulatory to a PANDAS ASD child. So we used to wear a lot of protection while during air travel, right? And what else can we talk about traveling? Hotel rooms. I used to take the Wi-Fi cage, the additional protecting diodes with myself, the clothing, of course. And I remember having this because, you can't really do anything about Wi-Fi in a hotel room, but you can certainly encase a router. Nowadays they actually have conductive bags available, which can be used to just drape around the router, so that reduces in any kind of exposure. So they've made it easier, for those who travel. There's also personal protection available. There are bracelets and grounding bracelets, grounding necklaces that contain this bioresonance technology, scalar technology, Schumann frequency technology, depending on the brand you use, which can be used for personal protection in addition to the EMF clothing, right? They have women's clothing, men's clothing, children's clothing. That's all available nowadays, thankfully, especially with the advent of 5G. 4G was quite detrimental to many of us, but 5G has just compounded that effect, hasn't it? Those of you who suffer from EMF sensitivity can absolutely relate to what I'm speaking of. So where was I? Traveling, hotel rooms, yes, hotel rooms. So Wi-Fi. Now, there is additional device that gets plugged in that nullifies the Wi-Fi in that particular living space. Now, that is just a plug-in device, right? So I had an extra I used to take with me, and I would plug it in. Now, in the hotel rooms, I mean, it's pretty visible because there's no hard wire available, right? There's no Ethernet available anymore. So it's quite interesting to see how the devices that we use for protection, they work. Because as soon as, I would plug in the Wi-Fi minimizer, that's exactly what would happen. In the next bedroom, we usually get a little room which has a couple bedrooms and a small kitchen, because I don't like eating out. I like to cook even when we go on vacation. So it's just so that's the kind of setup I usually prefer. Of course, there have been a couple instances when we have not been able to do that, traveling abroad and what have you, but that's what we actually endeavor to have. So we know that the food we are eating is clean and clear, versus signing up for meal plans and rubbish like that. But anyways, using Wi-Fi in the other room becomes a problem. So anyone who wants to use Wi-Fi would have to come within that 4 to 8 feet radius to be able to use. So we knew that the devices were working. Okay, I know it's a lot of information, isn't it? But but we are bombarded, people. We are bombarded with a lot of EMFs from every which direction. If your hotel is near an airport, many of us choose to just, have hotels near an airport for convenience sake, right? If your hotel is near a large entertainment area, for example, Universal Studios or Disney in Florida, that there's a tremendous amount of EMF exposure. And it's not just naming these two, but like theme parks is what I should say, any kind of theme park if you're visiting. So it could be near electric power lines as well. So, I mean, airports are cesspools of EMF, aren't they? With all of their transponders and wireless and all of their radar systems, etc. So it's just, one of the gauges of success of treatment was, for my son, was that he stopped reacting to Wi-Fi. That was a huge win for us. I mean, tremendous, no more eye blinking, making faces, head shaking, making visual vocal stimming, all of that. The vocal tics, all of that was neutralized, was nullified, went away. Now, did it go away completely? No. Because it is an autoimmune condition. PANDAS is autoimmune. So even now, if he, inadvertently on a day is exposed to a lot of Wi-Fi, I will still see, head shakes or some eye blinking. And I know that it's been a rough day for him. So we just get him to rest, couple extra hours of sleep, an additional dose of the binder, and then there are certain herbals and homeopathics that can be used for radiation exposure. And that's what we do. And that brings things back to baseline again for Brian. So EMF is a huge factor if your child is not improving. I remember there's just so many things we do. But a couple more things I remember. Let's talk about grounding, and let's talk about an EMF protection blanket that is also available. They have these little square shaped EMF protection blankets that are used for, that are actually designed for pregnant women. Okay, so you can just put that over your belly, and if you are using your tablet, etc. So that is helpful also for your child as additional protection when using, like for example, gaming, right? When they want to play video games, having the controls in their lap. So I would always have this EMF blanket on him, when he was sitting down, him meaning Brian, when he was little. Now he knows how to do all those things himself. All of the gaming consoles had the diodes. Our television has a diode. We never use the microwave for anything whatsoever. I mean, microwaving completely neutralizes all kinds of nutrition. Anyways, the food is complete rubbish once it comes out of the microwave. So we never really use the microwave for anything. So that's been nullified. And what else? Diodes, yes. So anytime you use any kind of tablet, any kind of gaming controller in your hand, it's best to have that added protection. Grounding. So grounding, there are grounding sheets available that you can put on the bed. What I do is I put the grounding sheet under the bed sheet, right? We have what we call here in the US as fitted sheets and flat sheets, right? When you buy a bedding set. So it goes under the fitted sheet and it gets plugged into the grounding outlet of your electrical outlet, right? You have the polarized and then you have the one grounding outlet. Now you need to test if your grounding outlet is, the grounding section in the outlet is truly grounded, because again, dirty electricity is everywhere. So for dirty electricity neutralization, there are stepserizer filters, and that's just a brand name. Sorry, I shouldn't mention. There are dirty electricity filters available. Some of them, there are many different brands. Some of them have a plug built in. So when you plug in the filter, you're not really losing an outlet. So they have outlets built into the filters. So we have those everywhere. So this is where you would plug in your grounding bedsheet, the wire. I mean, it comes with instructions, grounding, so that's very important. We had that for Brian when he sleeps. Nowadays, there are a whole lot more options available for traveling, for protection. There's clothing, there's for the whole house. Oh, you know what I forgot? Let's talk a little bit more about grounding. Now, grounding rods. Like I have 4 ground rods. So you would actually connect a wire from a grounding rod that's literally ground in the ground. Not ground, I mean pushed into the ground outside, and then the wire comes in through a window. So that is absolutely amazing, true grounding. Then you can build a grounding section in your backyard. So if you have access to the outside, you have a backyard, you can build a little safe area, like how children have sandboxes, right? Those are all artificial, but you can kind of segregate a little area where everything is pure, no chemicals, no ticks. All of those are handled like naturally, like the best thing to use on the lawn that I found with personal experience as well is neem oil, right? Neem oil, garlic oil, that neutralizes all kinds of bugs and ticks and what have you. And then you can establish this little grounding area where you can walk barefoot. So that's phenomenal grounding, you know, in addition to the grounding that's happening at home. So grounding is great. It helps improve sleep as well, helps with motor tics, EMF sensitivities, digestion, night wakings, sometimes with the nighttime bedwetting as well, if EMF sensitivity is a big factor. So these are good. So let's move on to the next one. One is, remember I spoke about the protective cover for tablets. Now, the same protective covers are also available for smartphones and cell phones, okay? So be sure to remember that as well. The same principle of using a scalar technology or, you know, Schumann frequency technology diodes that goes on the battery or the power source of the device, like, you know, a smartphone. The same, just like I spoke about the tablet, the same applies to the smartphone as well. So that's what I have, you know, on all of my devices as well. So there's a diode and there is a protective cover, right, which protects from the EMF radiation. Right, and I always use tube headsets, which are again, you know, greatly protective and reduce EMF exposure. So no AirPods, or, you know, once again, that's a brand, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You know, wireless earpieces, etc. That is a strict no-no for our kids, right? I mean, it's a great strategy for all of us, but you know, we are discussing children on the spectrum, so that's who I am speaking in context of. Okay, next is one question had come through about the Faraday cage, you know, the EMF canopy that goes over the bed. I'm not a fan of the EMF canopy. When I was researching, you know, there seems to be a controversy with the canopy trapping the EMFs inside, and it's just that, you know, the Brian was already improving with all of these tremendous number of EMF protective strategies that we had in place. I never really had to, you know, go for the canopy, and I was not comfortable with the canopy. So that's that. Last but not the least, cordless telephones. So cordless telephones should be plugged out. First of all, you know, there's no reason to have cordless telephones. Most people now have you know, smartphones that are used, but those of you who still use landline and cordless telephones, it is best to obtain one of those old-fashioned phones, right? And the phones with a cord versus a cordless telephone. If you absolutely must have a cordless phone, then please remember to plug it out, not turn it off. That's a whole different scenario, right? Plug it out, plug it out from the wall at nighttime before you go to sleep. So that's very important. You know, it's very, lots of things are important, right? But sorry, but you know, I'd rather be thorough than miss anything. So remember not to have anything plugged in your child's room at night. I guess, you know, if you need a night lamp, remember to get a battery powered one, right? Because battery powered ones are easily available. You don't really need to plug anything in. So that should be the goal. In fact, we used to avoid plugging anything into the wall if there was a common wall between Brian's room and any other room, so that common wall, I did not plug anything in there either, right? So that's important to remember. We also had the headboard of the bed, so the head towards the north. Towards the east, my bad. So towards, as much as possible, towards the east is the best. If you're in the northern hemisphere, your head should not be pointing towards north when you're sleeping at night. The same for your child, right? I'll discuss a little bit more, about the magnetic effect of Earth's poles, etc. The same applies for those who are in the southern hemisphere. Your headboard should not be towards the south as much as possible. It shouldn't. Okay, so southern hemisphere away from the south, northern hemisphere away from the north, east is the best. Okay, all right, good. Let me just quickly think if I'm not forgetting anything. Oh yeah. Last one. We need to move the bed 3 feet away from the wall, if possible, as much as possible, right? Most people have the bed kind of like, flush against the wall. No, don't have it flush against the wall. 3 feet away from the wall. Okay, so the next one will be proximity to high tension wires, high tension electric poles and wires. You can look up what those look like, right? Google high tension electric wires images, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And most of these, the poles, the electric poles that are high tension, also have, additional attachments to them, often Wi-Fi as well. Proximity to cell towers, proximity to electric grids. All of these should ideally be avoided when looking for building a house, a new house, apartments, any kind of living situation. If you're going on long vacation, as much as possible. I realize vacation, you can only do so much, but it's good to be aware, right? Education and awareness is key. Another thing that's important both for apartment living as well as for houses is smart meters. So let's talk about houses first. Smart meters, back in the day, we still have those available in some areas. The electric meters outside the house, right? The water meters, these are all attached to the wall, one of the walls outside. And they used to be analog, right? There used to be like multiple small dials, that were like rotating and like counting your usage, right? Water usage, electrical usage, etc. And a meter maid used to come around to read the meters and what have you. So they did away with that. Now they have smart meters. Now smart meters are emitting radiation inside your house. That reminds me, home security systems. If you leave the home security system on at night for whatever reason, remember it is Wi-Fi and there are signals all around the house. So hardwired home security system is important, just like analog meters. If you have an option, keep those. Like, it's sad and ironical and ridiculous that because we refuse to upgrade to the wireless technology and smart meters and what have you, we have to pay a monthly fee for that, just so that the meter on the house is analog. So they do have smart meter protection covers available. So it's not, beaming its nonsense inside the house at all times. That's very important. Now we have a generator as well, right? We have an automatic standby generator because of the extreme weather conditions that we live in here in the Northeast. Now that is a huge device. It's outside, so it's properly grounded on a concrete platform in the ground. However, I also have a couple diodes attached to it. The electrical panels in your home, we have two big panels. We have a lot of amperage for the amount of space we have. So those are also grounded. Once again, diodes are available to apply to your electrical panels. I already discussed dirty electricity filters. Great. Now let's talk about apartment living. Okay. If you are shopping for an apartment, Brian went to college and we looked around for, my God, there was so much to consider, right? New construction, etc. I'll do a separate video on that, but let's stick to the smart meters here. So the apartments, the building has about 200 to 300 apartments. So all of those meters, each apartment has a smart meter. Now these meters are outside, on the outside walls. So now there is one section of this big humongous apartment building that has all of these meters attached to the wall. Okay, and then they have conduits which conduct the wires to each individual apartment. Whatever is needed to do. I don't know too many technical details, but I do know enough to keep my son protected. So what we had to make sure was that the apartment that we chose was as far away as possible, and that did not have any wall in common with that, smart meter wall. That's one. Now, many apartment complexes have on each floor, there is an electrical room. So, there is a lot of electrical devices and electronics and electrical machinery in that room. And once again, we try to get an apartment as far away as possible from that electrical room. So these are just, a few tips. Whatever Wi-Fi and EMF protection we have in the home and the office. So home is the same, office is protected, all the cars are protected, as well as any additional apartments that we have, those are also protected. Just one for Brian for college, but yeah. So again, I think it's going to be a 10-minute thing, but my goodness, it's just, it takes a while to explain everything in depth. But there you go. It's very important that EMF exposure is reduced to a minimum to see maximum clinical gains in your child. All right. So any other questions that I haven't answered in this EMF video today, just please send them to me and I'll be happy to clarify those for you anytime. All right, good. So I'm glad you were able to join me today. Keep listening, keep watching, keep subscribing, and I will see you next time on Autism Uprooted. Have a good day. Namaste.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jodie A. Dashore, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANDAS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit BioNexusHealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugged. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.